Today on Growing Bolder, Mike Leonard's search for all that we have in common leads him to an inspiring story of resilience.
What made her do it? I'm Laura Savini, and today I'll introduce you to the intrepid 77-year-old British woman who became the oldest person to sail around the world alone, nonstop, and unassisted.
And the doctor is in. Make that the doctors are in, and not just any doctors. 3 former U.S. Surgeons General come to Growing Bolder to weigh in on the future of aging in America. We're not made to withdraw from life. We're made to seize each moment and to value every breath. We're made to be bold, to take risk, and to help others. We are the most creative, fearless, passionate being that has ever walked the face of the earth. Don't identify with limitation. Embrace possibility. This is not the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of what's next. This is Growing Bolder. Hi, I'm Mark Middleton, and welcome to Growing Bolder, where we are out to prove that there is more that unites us than separates us. Mike Leonard has made a career out of celebrating the common human qualities that lead to a good life. In today's In Common with Mike Leonard, Mike examines the importance of resilience.
Thank you, Mark. In early October of 2001, less than a month after the 9/11 terrorist attacks roiled our country and the world, a Chicago woman's little-known sacrificial act struck me as the perfect symbol of the strength and resilience needed to rise above life's great challenges.
Give yourself a hand.
They came to run a marathon in Chicago. I came to watch, searching through the lens of my home movie camera for story inspiration. I wondered if I should play upon the symbolic theme of the long, hard road facing America, or the struggle to conquer our fears, or the importance of bridging different cultures, or with the winds of war blowing, whether it was even appropriate to float a story concept designed to make people smile. Then came the answer, running hand in hand right toward me, Ann Martino, enthusiastically guiding blind runner Tim Paul to a glorious conclusion.
You know, people are so generous and helpful. It just really shows me how people are willing to help other people and to achieve a goal.
The goal for 43-year-old Tim Paul, who lives alone, has always centered on the quest to lead an independent and productive life while maneuvering around physical obstacles that 35-year-old Ann Martino has never had to encounter. She works as an account director in the Chicago office of J. Walter Thompson. He's a medical transcriptionist working the 3:30 to midnight shift at suburban Hinsdale Hospital. 2 very different people heading down 2 separate paths through life until last spring, when Ann read in a running club email that a blind runner was looking for a guide.
I've always wanted to do a marathon, and I never thought I would be able to do one.
And I guess I find that inspiring because there are so many things that we think we can't do.
So, using an old shoelace as a tether, off they went.
His trust is amazing. The first time we ran together, he had no idea who I was. He just came and we ran. And I actually thanked him for that trust, especially after we crashed.
A scary fall on their first outing that kept Ann in tears of guilt for the next half mile.
Because, you know, I thought, well, he'll never want to run with me again because I was a horrible guide. And I started to cry, and there was Tim reassuring me.
Both giving us a quiet display of compassion, overshadowed by the life and death concerns of a world struggling to keep its balance.
Who's ready to run 20 this morning?
At a pre-marathon group training session, it was plain to see that Ann, a single woman and experienced runner, would now be stuck in the middle of the pack in order to accommodate Tim's much slower pace. A difficult adjustment for a competitive runner always trying to beat her best time.
I know, but Ann can run another marathon for herself. This one's for Tim.
Don't forget Jim, or Jen, or Tony, or better yet, the estimated million or so non-runners who gave up a good chunk of their Sunday to lend a hand, or a cup of water, or a word of encouragement.
Good morning!
Mostly to people they didn't even know.
You have run Chicago.
And that's when I thought that maybe, in the never-ending human battle between good and evil, it's those simple everyday acts of kindness and charity that keep societies and nations on a noble course. Good people quietly doing good deeds, then disappearing into the flow of ordinary life before we even have a chance to congratulate them.
Ann and Tim stayed together over that 26-mile course because of their shared sense of resilience, a strength of character that enabled both of them to keep going and encourage each other, a unifying lesson for all of us as we head down the long road toward healing and recovery.
Thank you, Mike. You know, there is no question that resilience is one of the most important keys to successful aging because let's face it, life is filled with one hurdle after another, and being resilient helps us bounce back when something difficult does happen in our lives. So, how can we develop our resilience? Here's 3 quick tips. Number 1, make some lifestyle changes. Learn to say no when you don't want to do something. Use relaxation techniques like yoga or meditation. Spend time with family and friends because a support network is important. Number 2, look after your physical health. Get a good night's sleep. Stay physically active and eat a more balanced, healthy diet. And number 3, be less hard on yourself. Praise yourself for your achievements. Forgive yourself for your mistakes. Always remember that no one is perfect.
We are in the beginning stages of one of the biggest societal evolutions in a long time, the aging of America. So what's it going to be like for us? Well, if anyone has a sense of what's ahead, it's the Surgeon General. What if you had the chance to ask 3? Well, that's what we did, and here are some of their insights.
One of the governors in Puerto Rico used to say, I'm not old, I'm a young person full of years. And maybe the time has come to change the name of senior, of elder, something that is more encompassing. And one of the things that I hate the most is this issue of the silent generation. I cannot be silent when 72 million of us vote, when we have college degrees, when we give $7 trillion to this economy, and we try to be healthy, and 70 million of us want to work after the age of 65. How dare you call me silent?
Well, I think, aging in America is not, we don't do it as well as we could. We have more and more of us are growing older, but our infrastructure is not set up to accommodate us. And we look at our housing, we look at our lighting, we look at our streets, we look at our grocery stores, we look at our transportation. It's really not set up. It's set up to keep us isolated in our children's home, and they don't. I won't say they don't want us there. They feel an obligation to take care of us, but we don't want to be there either. And I always said, the last place I want to be, and I tell my children, I do not want to go and live with you. They said, but we don't want to throw you away. They think putting you in a nursing home is throwing you away. But putting me in a nursing home is better than going to their house. At least I'll have somebody to talk with.
Then there's the other issue of an aging population, and as you look at that curve going this way, every day about 10,000 people become baby boomers. And then the curve that's moving in this direction is the increase in dementias or Alzheimer's, and they're intersecting now. So who takes care of those folks? CMS has said we want people to age in place, and that's easy to say, but who are the caregivers when somebody has a dementia and could be a danger to themselves because they forget they turned on the stove or left the shower on or start driving and they don't know where they are? And so one of the things that we have to shine a light on is that we don't have a national infrastructure to care for our seniors. Today, for the first time in history, we're seeing more seniors because of a lower birth rate. So we have a much bigger population of seniors. And people are living longer. In 1900, they lived to 48 years old. Today, they're pushing 80 years old. So it's affecting pensions, it's affecting retirements, very complex issues. So how do we back away from that? How do we set up an infrastructure that allows our seniors to stay socially engaged, physically active, access to healthy food and care, and ensuring that they are able to age with dignity, that they're not off in a corner someplace just suffering, waiting to die, but they're living and thriving as they're aging. That's what's important.
Interesting insight from three amazing people, all having served this nation as Surgeon General. The point they all agree on is we can't wait for government to come up with something. We need to step up, take responsibility for our health, physical and financial, and have a plan for our future that allows us to age in the best way we possibly can. Learn more at growingbolder.com/TV.
Hi, I'm Laura Savini. Did you ever dream about setting a world record? Well, this woman stopped dreaming and went for it. Jeanne Socrates made her mark on the world in a very daring and unusual age. At the age of 77, she became the oldest person to ever sail around the world, alone and uninterrupted. It took her a year to complete the journey in her sailboat, an accomplishment she will revel in for the rest of her life.
Well, a lot of people say to me, is it physical strength or is it mental attitude? And it's totally mental attitude, absolutely mental attitude. If you want to do something, you're not going to harm anyone with what you're doing, you just make it happen. You just determine it's going to happen and somehow you find a way to do it. And once you've done it, the feeling, you feel so good having made it happen, especially when people think you're not going to make it happen. You overcome all the obstacles, you get there, and the feeling personally is just amazing.
And have you found that to be a metaphor for life as well and facing
absolutely.
issues?
Yeah. I mean, as long as you're not hurting anyone with what you want to do, just go ahead and make it happen, and you're going to feel so good as a result. The sense of achievement is just amazing.
Jeanne Socrates is a retired math teacher who did not learn to sail until she was 48 years old. She's now made 4 solo trips around the world. She says she hopes her story inspires others to be persistent and to never stop setting and achieving audacious goals.
So how's your heart health? Do you know? You really should. According to the CDC, every year in this country, 750,000 people will have a heart attack, and even more will have life-threatening heart issues. Mark Williams was a firefighter, healthy, he thought, until he had a heart attack at the station. You had no symptoms?
Not really, none that I recognized.
No pain?
No.
And you were doing fine?
It was doing fine.
Until that moment?
Until that evening, yes. And I don't even remember, so for me, it's a definite combination of divine intervention and cardiac intervention is the reason that I survived that night.
He survived, but his heart would not. Only one thing would save him.
I can't believe you're talking that I'm going to have a heart transplant. I never knew anybody that had a heart transplant.
Have you ever thought you might be having some kind of symptom, but decided to ignore it? Something like what happened to Kimberly Saunders Randall.
And I started being more and more tired all the time, but because I'm stubborn and because I'm really, really driven and very hardworking, I just kept going.
Who has time to be sick? And in her case, she's a performer, vocal teacher, and mother of a young child, so she waited until her yearly physical to see the doctor.
He said, "How long have you had the murmur?" I'm like, "What murmur?" So he let me listen, and it really did sound like a waterfall in my chest. So the mitral valve wasn't sealing, the blood was back flooding, and by the time I was catheterized to check it out, the cardiologist and the nurses couldn't believe I was walking and talking and as active as I was. So I scheduled open heart surgery. I felt so much better afterwards. I really, really did. It took me a while to realize that I had much, much, much more energy, and I didn't have to fight to do all the things I needed to do. I just could do all the things I needed to do.
Oh, but the heart looks fantastic, guys.
Williams was given a gift, and he knows it. And with every beat of his heart, he's determined to pay it forward. So Mark, you got your life back.
I do.
What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to live the best life I can every day, both for myself and for my donor that didn't get the opportunity. And I'm just going to try to keep making a difference. And I'm going to look for ways that I can speak to people like yourself and just share the word of organ donation and ask people to consider that big decision and just trying to, be the best person I can every day in my life.
Don't wait until something happens. Get regular checkups. Do everything you can do to keep yourself as healthy as possible. Oh, and also, please consider becoming an organ donor. It could one day allow you to give someone else the greatest gift of all, the gift of life.
As we age, we all hear one constant refrain. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. You're too old for that. Growing Boulder contributor Diana Nyad is now in her 70s and still has the same can-do attitude that she did at 64 when she became the first person, male or female, to swim the 110 miles from Cuba to Key West, Florida.
Get up. Don't miss the dawn. Don't miss your life. Chase your dreams. Be bold. Fail. Find out who you are. And I was lucky. This ethic came into my life when I was very young. Age 9, the Cuban Revolution broke out. Literally overnight, thousands of Cubans flooded into my hometown, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We had a buzzing mystique about that forbidden island right off our shores. One day I was on the beach with my mother and I said, "Mom, where is it? I want to see Cuba. It's out there, but I can't see it." She said, "It's there." No, it's there. It's right across the horizon there. As a matter of fact, it's so close that you could even swim there. Swim there? Well, as it turns out, through the 1970s, my 20s, I was one of the best ocean swimmers in the world, open water. I had records for the Bay of Naples in Italy, Manhattan Island, Lake Ontario, and all those, believe me, were grand adventures. But Cuba was in my soul. And now, the ocean swimmers started to call the Cuba swim the Mount Everest of the Earth's oceans. Since 1950, the great ocean swimmers, men, women, strong, fast, have been trying to get across. It's a vast, dangerous, epic wilderness out there. Have I mentioned the sharks at all yet? But these are the oceanic whitetips. The lemons, the tigers, 50, 60 miles offshore. They're hungry, and they're quick, and they're aggressive, and they're always underneath you. The box jellyfish emits the most potent venom on planet Earth. More people have died from the box than from shark bites. It's an epic endeavor, and to me, it was never just another endurance event. It was an emblem of living life to the nth degree. 1978, I walked down to the shore in Havana, 28 years old, brash, cocky, jellyfish, get out of my way. The wind whipped up, and we were in an 8-foot sea for 42 hours. The next year, and the training is what it's all about, 14 hours one day, 16 hours the next day. We couldn't get a break with the wind. It came out of the east all year long and bumped up against that Gulf Stream. The next year, we couldn't get a break with the visas. No American gets into Cuba, and now I'm 30. The age of retirement for most world-class athletes. And the knock on the door has come from the wide world of sports and Fox Sports and National Public Radio. I'm not going to complain about those next 30 years. I left my beautiful Cuba dream behind, but I'm following the best in the world pursue their excellence. And every time someone would try to make the Cuba swim, I like to think myself a sporting person. I'm retired. But when they wouldn't make it, I'd do a little happy dance. You know, it's illogical, but somehow the dream is still alive out there. Approaching 60, I started to feel the malaise of a spectator. At least those people trying to come across were doing something. I went rummaging around my office for a poem I had read once, The Summer's Day. I must have read those last two lines, those brilliant rhetorical lines, 1,000 times during that month of turning 60. Tell me, what is it you're doing with this one wild and precious life of yours? I hadn't swum a stroke in 30 years. I didn't know if the shoulders would come back. I didn't know if the will would fire up again. But that's what I decided to do with this one wild and precious life. I knew it was going to take tapping down into every fiber of my potential, summoning every drop of my courage, and the courage to fail, not the courage to succeed. We put it together. The expedition, I don't do this alone. And we failed. Trained another entire year, put it together again, failed again. Now, wrapped with the tentacles of the box jellyfish all over the biceps, down the back, anaphylactic shock, spinal cord paralyzing, swam through the night screaming, I'm on fire, help me. And I didn't make it, but I didn't give up on it either. And now we tried a fourth time, and we failed again. And now the whole world called this event absolutely impossible. But what those sports journalists and scientists and the public at large didn't understand that, yes, this endeavor is about a number of things, but nothing more than the power of the human spirit. And we, me and my team, we were still believers. So it's a fifth time. I stand on the shore of Havana, looking out at a horizon that now looks more elusive than it ever did before. And I take the leap. And that was 53 hours, 111 miles of some awe-inspiring gliding over the curvature of the earth and some profound suffering. It's been 5.5 years now since the stumble up onto that beach. And yes, I can remember the moment of triumph, but more so, what stayed with me is my will and a team's refusal to give up. So I stand before you tonight, retired from my sport a second time, and every day reminding myself to dream big, to be unafraid to fail, because that's when I'll find my true grit, and to never, ever give up. Thank you very much.
Dottie Gray didn't have that problem. She didn't do a lot more than she thought she could. She did a lot more than her doctors thought she could. She did a lot more than everyone except herself and her family thought she could. When Dottie was 93, she fell out of her bed and broke her hip. Doctors told her family that she probably wouldn't survive surgery and that if she did, she'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. Well, Dottie had other ideas. This is Dottie at 94, just 1 year after breaking her hip, running in the 100-meter dash at the National Senior Games. She recovered because she was in great shape when she broke her hip. She loved competing with her friends, and she didn't want to give it up. And because she truly believed that more was possible than what her doctors told her. You're overcoming pain, I'm guessing?
Oh, pain.
You're overcoming expectation? People think you can't do this?
I guess.
And yet you still press on. Why?
Well, because I'm determined to keep going as long as I can.
God bless you, Dottie Gray. Now that is quite a comeback. So how is your comeback going? All of us are in the middle of a comeback right now. We're coming back from a broken heart or a broken leg. We're coming back from a bad investment, a bad accident, a bad childhood, a bad relationship, or a bad experience. We're coming back from a 48-hour case of the flu or a year-long battle with cancer. We're coming back from the loss of a job or the loss of a friend. We are all in the ring, battling life's never-ending challenges, and everyone represents an opportunity to mount a comeback or to accept a setback. How successful we are in bouncing back has a cumulative effect on how quickly we age, how long we maintain our independence, and ultimately the overall quality of our lives moving forward. Now, if you want to accept the impact of your most recent setback, that is your right. But understand that life will continue to knock you down. There will be another setback and then another. And each one will extract a toll on the overall quality of your life. At some point, we all have to surrender. But for the vast majority of us, that time is not now, not yet. This is the time for growing bolder. We'll see you next time.
More information about all of the stories you've seen here today is available at growingbolder.com/TV. And you can go bold when you connect with the Growing Bolder community on Facebook and Instagram. Get Growing Bolder magazine 4 quarterly issues delivered to your home for $29.97 a year. A companion book, Growing Bolder by Mark Middleton, is available as well for $25 plus shipping and handling. Growing Bolder membership includes access to a robust online platform featuring tools, tips, and resources in personal finance, functional fitness, caregiving, brain health, entrepreneurism, and more. Available for $30 for 1 year. Order online at growingbolder.com/TV.